right.
Just 1 minute.
Just 1 minute. I mean, Greg warmed you up, so I don't really have much to add to that. I mean, I like snow. It's not bad. I got a little timer here. How many of you have done one of these in terms of attended a TEDx event before? Quick show of hands. Okay, so good, you have expectations of me. All right, let's roll. You know, one of the joys of being a new father is rediscovering books that you may have forgotten about when you were a kid that you read. I'm a father of 3 girls. That's them. The oldest there is Pepper, and then Maggie and Rosie are 5 months old. And one of the books that I had the pleasure of rediscovering because of them is The Giving Tree. And if we remember The Giving Tree, the long and short of it is it's a wonderful book by Shel Silverstein that talks about a tree and a boy. And that tree and boy had a wonderful connection with each other. They provided with each other. The tree would give the boy apples and shade and a trunk to climb and branches to swing from. But as the boy got older, he wanted more things the tree didn't have outright. And the tree would try to give him what he needed. He became a young man and said, I need money. I need to buy things. Well, I don't have money, the tree says, but I have apples, and you can sell the apples. And this cycle repeated itself a few times until the tree was basically just a stump, because it would give itself to the boy. Whatever he would need, it would give. And the book says the tree was happy during all this, but the tree was not happy. But the thing about it is that it ends with the boy becoming an old man, and all he wants to do is sit down. And the tree becomes happy again, because even though it's a stump at this point, it perks up. And it reconnects with the old man in a way that is natural. And this is what I want to talk about today. The book really inspired me to reflect on my own career. I've been raising money for nonprofits and charities for over 10 years now, millions of dollars for various causes. And there's been a pretty important trend that is happening in the nonprofit space that I think is very concerning. And that is that we're starting to treat charities as businesses. We're moving away from the core essence of what they mean to be. Now, charities actually generate a lot of involvement and money, $390 billion in 2016 alone. That's 2.1% of GDP. And they employ millions of people. There's actually over 1.5 million nonprofits in the United States alone today. So this is big, which means that if it's not doing things the way it should be, there's a problem. And I feel that there's a very big problem that we need to rewire. We need to rewire the way that we think about making good in our communities. We need to get back to the basics. So how do we know there's a problem? Well, there's a few key indicators when it comes to that. The first is donor retention. So in the nonprofit world, donor retention simply means loyalty year over year to an organization. If you donate this year, you are a retained donor if you donate next year, et cetera, and so forth. Donor retention has been plummeting. And according to the largest database of individual giving data in the world, the Fundraising Effectiveness Project, donor retention actually hit a low this year of 28%. 28%. People are getting fed up with how they're being treated. But it's not just the people who are donating, it's actually the employees at the nonprofits themselves. Staff turnover is above industry standards. It's actually at 19%. That's a lot of people leaving their jobs. Burnout, dissatisfaction, low wages, these are things that are constantly being talked about in nonprofit circles. But that can just be a few things that can be course corrected, right? if we treated charities to the same standards that we do businesses, but we don't. In the business world, success is measured by the revenue that they generate. More revenue means that they're successful. Maybe wages go up, benefits get better. That does not happen in the nonprofit world. The standard that they are held to is if they are being very good at their jobs, serving more people, providing more meals, more research into cancer, things of that nature, costs go up, but revenue does not necessarily go up. But the biggest issue when we treat charities as businesses is that it rebels against our natural state. We are born givers. We are born people who want to connect with each other. We're not born as people who want to immediately make a transaction with each other. Our natural state is to connect. And this isn't some kumbaya drum circle thing that I'm coming up with here. This is science. Science tells us this. In 2006, there was a study done on brainwaves and giving. That's what that is. That's from the study. And so what the study demonstrated is that they gave everybody in the study an allotment of money. And every so often during the study, they would say, do you want to give this as an anonymous donation and decrease your allotment, or do you want to keep it? And every single person in the study wanted to give. They wanted to give, every single person. In fact, the average allotment that they gave away was 40%. They still kept some money, let's be real. But the most interesting thing was this, the brain activity. When they actually analyzed brain activity of people who gave, it activated the rewards pathway in our brains, dopamine. Dopamine was definitely released when people received money, but it was actually fired off at a much higher rate when they gave. We are born to give. And so the issue is that if we start treating charities purely as businesses to create transactions and to create product, that moves us away from the core essence of not only who we are, but how we can actually make good in our communities. All we have to do is look toward the healthcare industry to see what happens when we start treating people like products, as opposed to a basic human right. So what we need to do is get back to the basics. It's a pretty tall order. How do we do that? Well, I'm going to talk about the primary driver that I think that we can start with, which is the money. How do we actually generate money and support for the things that we care about, the things that change our lives? Because I firmly believe that if we address the monetary side of things, that will filter out into all the other issues that the nonprofit industry has in terms of accountability, in terms of how people treat each other, in terms of wages, in terms of overall support. If we solve the money, we can solve the rest. So the way that I want to concentrate on that is in three primary areas of giving, actually the largest three that drive how we give today. The first is charitable foundations. People who write grants, they wait a long time, they hopefully get a grant. The second is corporate giving. Just because we don't want to be treated like a business doesn't mean we can't have a positive relationship with the business community. How do we do that? And finally, we need to address ourselves. How do we all give? How do we relate to charity as individuals? Not only from a personal sense, but 2/3 of giving of that $390 billion that I mentioned is because of individual giving. So this is the biggest concern. Let's start with charitable foundations. I actually got my start as a grant writer. And the problem that I found is that foundations put large amounts of restrictions on how you can even use a gift. They basically say, well, this is what you need to do. We want to work on poverty. Yeah, you're going to do it this way. Yeah, but we don't think that's the way it should. No, that's how you're going to do it if you want the money. And so we put too many strings on the organization, too many things around how they should operate. What we need to do is free it up. We need to break away the restrictions and focus in on unrestricted giving. I experienced this. When I was a grant writer, I would actually change the programs and language and narrative. And even if you're writing it down and saying, well, okay, when we actually do the program, we'll do it the way that we want. That when you write it down, there's accountability in terms of how you have to report on that. So you can't fudge it. So if we encourage unrestricted grant money, it empowers the nonprofit to do things the way they see fit. In fact, it will make accountability more potent that way. Because then you have to show results to justify why you receive that money even more. And there's precedent for this. The Lilly Endowment in Indiana actually created a $66 million endowment specific for unrestricted giving, and it's been fantastic for the communities in Indiana. So there's precedence. Then we have to talk about corporate giving. And I want to talk about the most insidious piece out there. Cause marketing. Cause marketing needs to die. If you're not familiar with the idea of cause marketing, it is the idea of a business aligning its corporate mission around promoting a social cause. There's problems with this. Let's talk about a few. The first one is it can go awry pretty easily. I think a good example is this one. If you're not aware, this is real, or it was. It was the Susan G. Komen teaming up with KFC for Buckets for the Cure. Oh my God. That's right. There's a little bit of a disconnect of a cancer organization teaming up with a fast food chain, don't you think? So this is a pretty egregious example, but it's the core point of cause marketing that is the problem. There was a survey done of marketing executives, and no offense to any charitable work that Over It does, by the way, but marketing executives were surveyed and they were asked, well, what is cause marketing to you? And 97% of them replied, it is a business strategy. It is not philanthropy. So from a foundation, they don't even consider this charity. It's something that can be pivoted very quickly. So it's also something that the nonprofits themselves typically don't benefit as much as they could be compared to other returns on investment. Prime example, pun intended, is Amazon Smile. Amazon Smile is a program where you give a referral link, and if somebody buys something through that referral link, the charity gets money. Pretty cool, huh? I put this out for one of the nonprofits that I was involved in all the time. It was a comic books and literacy nonprofit. It seemed like a great idea. Here's the reality. If I generate $10,000 of business for Amazon, I get $50. Yeah. So where do we put our effort? Corporations should be creating a culture of philanthropy instead. And they can easily do this. The idea of a matching gift is that if an employee donates something, the corporation will match it. That's it. Unrestricted giving, very simple. And so the realities are that there's between $6 billion to $10 billion left unclaimed by matching gifts each year. And corporations that offer a matching gift program, the only average of people participating is 9%. Imagine if we just increased that by a few percentage points. What power could we have? And it also creates a direct tie between the people in the community and where they're investing their passion and mission. So then there's individual giving. Again, the biggest bucket, 2/3. The problem when we have a paradigm that businesses and charities are the same thing is that we enter into a transactional relationship around our giving. You end up being treated like an ATM. And so as a donor, you are not building a relationship with the organization. So what we need to do instead is focus in on working together around our missions. When we donate, that is us being a partner in the organization. So the nonprofit needs to view us like that. And there's a lot of ways that you can do that. There's a lot of ways that you can implement that. But the reality is that retention goes up when you have a relationship-focused approach to donor stewardship. People are happier if more money is coming in and they stay at their jobs. And success is then tied to mission growth. And it's natural. So instead of investing or putting our money toward charities that have the best marketing campaign, the most name recognition, we should actually look at what they're doing in their communities. Are they fostering equity? Are they fostering inclusion? Are they actually listening to the people that they are working with? Are they listening to the donors and the other stakeholders? These are the items that we need to pay attention to as individuals. Now, I know that seems like a daunting task. Where do you even start? Well, I feel I've rewired myself for good. When I turned 30 actually, I'm 35 now. When I turned 30, I threw a birthday party for charity. It was at a brew pub in Chicago. I charged $65 for access to my birthday party. I had a comedian, wasn't Greg, but it was a good comedian. Cameron Esposito, she's on TV. A theater troupe and a band, a live auction, food, beer, everything that I love. But it was focused around my love for 4 different organizations. We raised $4,600 that night. Thank you to my wife for helping do the ticket booth. It made the local paper in Chicago. It was so popular that I did it again right before we moved here. We actually moved here a few months ago, and our going away party was another fundraiser. Kid focused this time. So this brings me back to the Giving Tree itself. When we moved here and I unboxed books for my kids, I found the Giving Tree. And the reality is that book is kind of a bummer. It's got a bittersweet ending, right? Like, great, he connected as an old man after abusing this tree for years. That wasn't a relationship. It was a transaction. I wish the book ended after like the first 6 pages, when they were in their natural state. We're born givers. We each have a giving tree inside of us. So the question I have for you is, are you ready to plant it? Thank you very much.